Hello everyone and welcome to today's session. As usual, I'm delighted to have you all here with us today, joining us on this very interesting webinar in where we will discuss Case Study, Why You Need ISO 20000 to Ensure Success. My name is Iterative, the Portfolio Marketing Manager for Continuity Resilience and Service Management. Stay tuned for the next 60 minutes and learn. What is the story of the magic potion named ISO 20000? What are the principles of ISO 20000? What are the arms and ammunition of ISO 20000? How to use its elements in fighting against some of the major business challenges, and lots more during this 60-minute presentation. I would like to introduce today's presenter, Mr. Saikat. He has 15 years of experience in IT industry, and he is an IT advisory expert in multiple facets of management consulting. He is the managing director of Consultants Factory, a global management consulting firm. Before Consultants Factory, Mr. Basu played multiple senior roles for global players like KPMG, IBM, QAI, etc. At the end of this presentation, we would love to hear from you. Therefore, I highly encourage you to submit any question or comment you may have during this webinar in the chat box of your control panel. Thank you for your attention, enjoy the webinar, and I hope you will get insightful information. Please, Mr. Basu, you may start the presentation.
Hello friends, welcome to this case study of today. We will discuss about ISO IEC 20000 and we'll understand, we'll take one live case. So in my career, I have done more than 100 implementations on ISO 20000 across the globe. Today I have one case study for you from the recent past, which I will be happy to share with you, telling you about how ISO 20000 implementation generated some real benefits, some business benefits for an external IT service provider. However, before I go there, let me quickly set the context. I'm on slide number 2 of my presentation. So if you see, today's discussion will be divided in 4 parts. We'll set the context of the discussion. We'll then talk about the case study, and then we'll get into a few of the major benefits that we achieved through this engagement. And of course, at the end, we'll summarize. The entire presentation is around 18 slides long, and it has summary of the engagement. Starting with the context. So before we get into our case study, I would quickly touch upon ISO 20000. Because considering the fact that ISO 20000 talks about something called service management system, we'll discuss the differences between process and system, understand how both of them are equally important. We'll elaborate on service management system a little more. We'll also discuss ISO 20000 implementation pitfalls at the end, and then we'll set the context on big picture focus of service management system. Okay, so to start the discussion, what is ISO? We all know, just to standardize, this is indeed a standard to promote the adoption of a system approach, or as we call integrated process approach, for effective management of IT services. So this is one of the, this is the de facto benchmark in the world of service management, where you can benchmark your performance or rather your service management system effectiveness vis-a-vis the standard. Moving on, as I said, we have been talking about this terminology called standard for the system for some time, service management system. What is it? So if you see, this is a simple diagram. Let's consider this to be your home. And at your home, you must have seen that there are various processes that you practice. For example, chopping, cooking, mopping, dusting, and so on. Each one of these are nothing but a set of steps which you follow. And each one, to be well executed, you require a set of roles and responsibilities, you require a set of tools and ammunition, and you need to synchronize them well. Each of these processes are capable of being practiced in silos and deliver their benefits. For example, chopping the process can deliver a set of finely chopped vegetables. However, there is another process called cooking, which will take the outputs of chopping, use them in their set of steps, and ultimately deliver the food that you are looking for. So we understand, similarly, there are multiple processes in any establishment, be it your home or your organization. And these processes, there are sets of processes, and these processes are not good enough when they're only in silos. They need to start talking to each other. They need to sync up with each other. And when they do that, that's called a system. So in any normal circumstance, to enjoy the family objectives, or to achieve the objectives that you have for your business, you would require sets of systems helping you in various ways. And just like this home, the diagram, going to the next one, at office or in your business, also you require a set of various management systems. For example, quality, service, information security. For each one, you need an engine or a system which regularly helps you generate benefits and deliver your enterprise objectives. So we understand that given a chance, it is ideal to have a system approach in your organization. And needless to tell you, ISO 20000 helps you establish and benchmark your service management system. Moving on. Coming to the next slide, if you see, we have mentioned two focus areas. This is my understanding, of big picture focus of service management system. There are various goals, or there are various benefits that you can expect by setting up a well-oiled service management system, the engine. However, these, according to my understanding, has been one of the primary ones, the most important ones in any such environment. The first focus area is about delivering value. So when you have the engine set up, when you have the service management system working fine, you would be able to deliver value to your customers. Your customers expect a set of deliverables, so they have their their deliverables, SLAs, and their perceptions. They would expect you to deliver value. And as a service provider, you would be able to achieve that. One of the easy ways, one of the well-defined ways could be a simple practice of a service management setup benchmarked against ISO 20000. That could be one of the great starting points. Coming to the second focus area, this is, according to my understanding, is a challenge in the industry today. It's called end-to-end control. You must have seen the service provider is in the middle. On one side, you have your customer who has a set of SLAs with you, which are commitments documented. And then there are some undocumented commitments called perception. So customer has a lot of expectations from you which are not defined through any SLAs. Those perceptions might be equally important, if not more, for your customer to judge your performance and decide whether they are happy with you. So being a service provider, you need to cater to both. And when you try to do that, the downside, now the sad part comes. The sad story is that you, being a service provider, can't do everything by your own. You are dependent on various other parties. One set could be your internal teams. So you have multiple other teams like your human resource team, your administrator team, your finance, your multiple groups. So you're dependent on them. And on the other side, you have huge amount of dependency on many of your external suppliers. Naturally, if you want to commit something to your customer, if you want to delight them, you will have to have strong control over all these other parties as well. That generally is missing in most of the organizations you must have seen. Today, if a service provider fails to deliver upon their SLAs and they are challenged, they generally raise their hand saying that, okay, this is not my fault. My internal team could not deliver it on time. Or maybe this is not my fault, I am dependent on my suppliers, so you should talk to them. We all understand that's not right. We all understand that's not how service management world works. By the way, when I say service management, I mean IT as well as non-IT services, and both are dependent. So dependency is a huge area, and managing dependencies well is one of the most important ingredients for your success in business. ISO 20000 is so wonderfully designed today. If you have a look at it, there is this new clause that was introduced in the last edition, which is clause 4.2. It talks about governance of processes operated by other parties. So that process actually brings the maturity of the overall standard by multifold. It makes you realize how, I mean, I have been facing this question for eternity. People are asking, okay, I mean, you're talking to us about having control over other parties, but how? What should be the minimal controls? We cannot control some of their practices. So here, ISO 20K tells you that no, you are not required to control their management practices maybe, but how about having a governance control, at least a big picture one? And let me tell you, that's the starting point of your organization becoming more and more mature. So I think these are some of the focus areas that you should keep in mind when you go for an ISO 20000 journey. Your journey should not be focused on only a few operational processes like incident, problem, and change. It should also equally focus on value. This is called value-driven journey, instead of going for only a tick in the box where you just have a set of, I mean, don't kill ISO 20000 by breaking it down into hundreds of compliance points or conformance points, my apologies. You just say these are the points and we need to just be certified, so we need to be compliant to that. Try to avoid that pitfall and focus on this value-driven journey. Moving on, the case study. So needless to say, when we took this journey, the case that I will talk about today, that of course talks about a value-driven journey. It talks about taking business, taking business goals and helping the organization, my client, in some of those. Going to the next slide. So this engagement journey is summarized into, as you see, this is the engagement background. On this slide, we have spoken about the client. So this client, the client I'm talking about, so I was a part of the external consulting team who went to this client side and did a complete thorough implementation of establishment of their service management system, SMS, and getting them ISO 20000 certified at the end. In that procedure, we generated some of the benefits, which we'll highlight. So looking at the client, this was an IT service provider. It's not a non-IT service provider, they're IT company. What do? They provide support. They provide IT services into infra as well as ADM. ADM stands for Application Development and Maintenance. So this IT service provider is a giant. This is an India-based company, though they have their offices across, with a total employee strength. Those days it was 4,000 plus. Nowadays I think they have reached double of that. Location was, as I said, India plus multiple other offices across the globe. Needless to again tell you, this is an example of external IT service provider. So this is not an internal IT example where the internal team helps the same organization. So now, coming to the discussion, their objectives of this journey were primarily big picture, a few. The first one was to help establish them a central SMS, or central service management system for our client. That means the IT service provider. If you see this diagram next to it, the blue box, the light blue box is the scope of this journey. So they called us stating that they have customers. Now understand the structure well. So this IT company has multiple customers across the globe. These customers across the globe are from various countries, US, UK, Australia, and so on. And these customers are non-IT companies. So what they have decided is rather than managing their IT infra by their own, they have decided to hand that responsibility over to this Indian company. Now this Indian company sitting in India, they are remotely managing infra and application setup of these customers. Most of the employees are sitting in India with a thin line of employees sitting in the respective client locations as well, just to give desk side support. That's the structure. So now this IT service provider I'm talking about, they have multiple clients, and for each customer they have one dedicated team of employees working. So let's say, for an example, if they have 50 clients, they have 50 different teams sitting in India, each one working for a dedicated client sitting elsewhere. Now, the current challenge they had, let me give a little more detail. The current structure they had was some of these clients, some of the clients have already gone through ISO 20K journey back in their countries. So naturally, they insisted that my client here, sitting here, the team that is catering to them, that team is ISO 20K certified, and naturally they were. So if I look at these 50 different teams of my clients sitting in India, let's say 3 of them or 4 of them were already ISO 20K. They were practicing those good practices. However, these were in pockets and the practices were very different from each other. The client, when they summoned us, they called us, they said they require to set up a central structure, a central service management system, and all these 50 service delivery teams will be subjected to the same central practice. Of course, based on their clients' wishes, these 50 teams will be allowed to make certain modifications to their current practices, but there will be an organization specific central hub practice. The spokes could be different. So that was the structure. Okay, so that was one of the big requests, and hence we decided to establish that service management system. The second major requirement was better alignment. Better alignment between the customer, the IT service provider delivery teams, and the support teams, and of course the suppliers. So now one thing is very common in these kind of external IT service providers. The commonality is, if you notice the blue box, the support teams sitting in the box, they are generally considered as a very common issue. They are considered as cost centers and not profit centers. So there is a sense of lack of involvement in these employees, and they don't really know how a good work from their end will result into great benefits for the organization. They feel that they are secondary citizens of the world, whereas the IT service provider delivery teams, the front-ending teams, they are the primary breadwinners. That's the concept. We all understand that's not true. We all understand there is a huge link between these groups. Sadly enough, the culture of that linking, the culture of creating OLAs or operational level agreements, the culture of binding those bonds and bringing in, ownership was missing. So naturally, this organization wanted us to do that so that the support teams understand the grave, consequences of them not doing one thing right. On the other side, also be a part of the reward and recognition that comes with it. Okay, so that was the second requirement. Then there was a third requirement, enhancement of customer confidence. So now this was a common issue, and I'm sure many of you would agree that this is a standard issue across any IT service provider. The issue is that most of the customers, even after meeting all OLAs, sorry, my mistake, even after meeting all SLAs, they still feel that the quality of delivery is not great. So there is a perception issue. There is a lack of confidence in the customer's mind. And let me tell you, it has not great things to do with the SLAs. Maybe the bigger chunk of concern would be the way you handle your business relationships. Or, I mean, we all understand there is a process called BRM, business relationship management, which helps you establish better customer confidence. other than many other things, by building a stronger relationship and so on, communication and etc. But anyways, that was not something that was greatly practiced. So this was a concern, and this we took as a focus area as well. We said, okay, how can we enhance the customer confidence, which will show in repeat business, point one, and point two, which will show in better customer satisfaction survey results. Moving on to the last point, of course, needless to tell, as a result of all this, when you start practicing well, you naturally apply for ISO 20000 and you hopefully get certified. As I keep saying, ISO 20000 is not the, that's not the destination, that's the reward. The destination for you is to create a well-structured service management system. When you do that, 20,000 comes as the laurel, as the reward. Good news is 20,000 also gives you a lot of inputs on what are the things that you can look at to make your environment better. So yeah, so this 20,000 certification was also a requirement which we took up. Good. Scope I have already explained. So this is the structure. This is how we proceeded. Now on the next slide, I'll tell you how we did it. It's called engagement approach. So if you see, this engagement approach says we took an iterative journey. Let me tell you, there are two standard methods that you may follow. First one being a waterfall approach, where you start from planning and you at last get them certified and complete the handover end to end. You complete in one iteration, you start to end. And then there is an iterative approach which you take, through which you can go through multiple iterations of your journey in incremental maturity ways, or maybe you can pick up different areas. So you can break down your entire journey in multiple pieces and take them piece by piece. There are merits and demerits to both. We decided to go iterative here. Let me tell you why. So first thing is, we realized that this is an, I mean, in the client's mind, I mean, our customer's mind, the IT service provider, in their mind, this is an ISO journey. And ISO journeys, when you take, the rewards or the certification does not come overnight. It takes time. It comes out over a period of time. So naturally, we have seen that the top management or the employees of the organization has a tendency of losing interest. When you start this engagement, I mean, first couple of months, everybody is pretty gung-ho about it. And then slowly, steadily, the excitement dawns, and then people start questioning their decisions. They start questioning the progress, and everything is seen on paper, and it doesn't hit the shop floor. And there are doubts. And when the doubt creeps in, it becomes very challenging to continue with the engagement and bring in the positive change that you're trying. So here we saw those kind of tendencies when we did a due diligence before the engagement start. So looking at that, we said, why not make it an iterative benefit through which every 3 months or every 12 weeks we'll be able to deliver some of the other benefit which will hit the shop floor. People will start seeing them. So let's say if you can pick up a few low-hanging fruits like incident problem and so on, these processes, and make them go live in the new structure immediately in 3 months time, then people see things happening, they get engaged with that, and in the meanwhile, parallelly, you're running the next iteration. Likewise, when you do it iterative over a period of time, the excitement is that the organization will be, they will stay put, they'll stay engaged, and it is greatly beneficial for your journey. So thinking about that, we took the iterative approach. Though I'm calling it iterative, but it's a portion of it which is iterative. Let me elaborate. So if you see, this diagram tells you the steps, and next to that it also tells you the typical period of time that we took. By the way, let me also reiterate, in this engagement, we were a team of 3 from external client, from external consulting firm who worked on it. I was leading the team, and along with me, I had 2 team members, 2 other consultants. So starting with the planning, in the planning phase, naturally we planned for the entire roadmap, the journey of this engagement. We decided when to start, when to end, which week what should be done, and so on and so forth, the scoping and so on. Based on the plan, we moved to the next step. Naturally, we did a gap analysis. Gap analysis of their current service management system setup. I mean, even if they don't have a setup as such, but they still will be having traces of practice. So we looked at those traces through a gap analysis. This gap analysis was a 2 weeks affair of 3 people. So when we were looking at the gap analysis, remember this phase was also divided in 2 subparts. We did a gap analysis of their, it's called a test of design. So we tested their current design or documentation of the system. So we saw their process documents, their policy documents, their roles and responsibilities definition, their manual, if they, I mean, in this case they didn't have one, but anyways, so we looked at their reports, their minutes of meeting, everything. We went through all their practices and design to understand where they stand, documentation check. And then we did a second piece called test of effectiveness, which is nothing but looking at their environmental practices. So we saw how well they are practicing. And for that, we had to speak to stakeholders. We had to interview people, and as they gave their inputs, we had to translate their communication to the service management language and identify their current conformance level. Naturally, at the end of the gap analysis, we came up with a report. That report identified the gaps they have from the benchmark, which is ISO 20. These gaps were any of these 2 types. Either they were design gaps or they were practice gaps. So naturally, the next step for us, natural progress would have been to redesign the structure, to establish it well. That's what we did. We went to the central system design. So we decided, let's design their system. When I say system, I mean 4 P's. The P's stand for people, process, product, and partner. So we designed their processes, we designed their roles and responsibilities, the people part. We designed their, the product part, which is nothing but their tools and the technology that they use. And then at the end, we also designed their partner aspects. That means when I say partner, in this case, we took the liberty of changing the meaning of partner. Partner is typically used for only external partners, but in this case we decided that partner would be internal as well as the external parties. That means other parties. So we designed a separate process for how to interact with them, how to have governance control, and so on. So these are the 4 pieces that we redesigned. And remember, all these had to be generic so that they are implementable or applicable to entire organization, any team. And that team could be delivery or that team could be a support team. So we made it generic. After those generic designs were done, we offered those designs to all these 50 plus teams and requested them to create their customized versions of these documents under a set of controls that do these customizations so that it can be used in your day-to-day environment. Now, from here started the iterative journey. So the big gray box that you see in the middle, that's the iterative box. The arrow goes to the first box which says team specific customization. So they did that. And we reviewed and confirmed that these modifications are as per our modification checklist. We had a control mechanism on them. So they could not have thrown out crucial parts of any process or crucial parts of any roles and responsibilities. They were allowed to modify only up to a certain level. So they did that. After that was signed off and agreed upon, we asked them to distribute the specific roles that we have designed. For example, who will be the central point of contact from their division? Who will be the various process managers and process owners? Who will take care of the internal audit from their part, and so on. So these roles had to be given to people. So we had a set of policies while these roles were distributed. I'm sure many of you will know, but for the benefit of the group, let me reiterate. When you distribute a role, when you select a person to play a role, you need to look at a few aspects. You need to look at a few things to decide whether that person is the right fit. The first point you should look at is whether the person has the capability to play this role. That means whether the person has the experience and the educational background and so on to be able to appreciate the role that is given to him or her. So that's point one. Point two, you need to ensure that the person is not playing another role which clashes with this. So there should not be any conflicting roles given to the same person. So that's second check. Third thing you need to check, very important, the person may have all the capability in the world. The person might be not playing any conflicting role, but the simple fact could be that the person is not interested in taking another role. And if you still forcibly give it to him or her, it will end up not being satisfactorily done. So very crucial. So we ensured that that factor is also changed. So three things: interest, capability, and conflict. Once you see all these 3 points are checked, you are good to offer the role to a person who suits. So this is how the role distribution happened. We closely monitored it, and then naturally we could not have asked these people who assumed these new roles, we could not have asked them to start practicing these processes or start practicing the new system. So what we had to do is first handhold them and give them a role-based training. Role-based training is a very practical way of training an individual so that they will be able to run the show without any great guidance any further. And these role-based trainings are pretty, as I said, pretty practical and hands-on. We did that. After the trainings were completed, we requested them to plan for their own areas. So for example, if a person is given the responsibility to manage a process called, let's say, availability management, we expected the person to come up with the availability plan for his or her team for that year. And then naturally those plans had to be presented to the interested parties or the stakeholders to get it signed off and so on. Once all these planning phases got over, we asked them to take the processes to make them go live. Let me also tell you, I'm explaining the process bit, but the tool bit ran parallel. Good news was there were hardly any tool customization that was recommended, considering the fact they were using some really global tools, pretty top-notch ones, and they really didn't require much modification. So yeah, so that happened, and after that they went live with these new set of processes. They learned how to capture new metrics and regularly report and so on. When they went live, then we started monitoring, creating weekly reports of their performance, and then getting that iteration signed off. So we had targets set for each iteration, so we signed that off and went to the next set of customization. So if you see, each iteration ran for 12 weeks. Out of that, the first 2 weeks, out of 12 weeks, sorry, the first 4 weeks, that means 1 month. 12 weeks means 3 months typically. So the first month was dedicated for right from customization of the processes till the go live. And then the next 2 months were spent on monitoring, reporting, regular iteration and weekly reporting. So just to standardize and structure, make it customized and ready. Okay, so that's how we did. We broke down the entire journey into 3 such iterations, each of 12 weeks. That's the long portion. And these iterations, as I said, we broke it down into 3 parts. The first part had a set of processes from typically the operational aspects. The second set was more from tactical processes. And the third layering, the third iteration had the primary focus on the central system structuring. That means the clause 4.0 and so on. And of course 5.0, these two. So this is how we structured it in 3 parts. And after the 3 parts were successfully over, we summarized the entire practices and went for an overall end-to-end internal audit. Internal audit is nothing but again looking at the same practices in the new light. So we gave them feedback and they improved, and now was the time to do an internal audit. The internal audit activities were spanned for 1.5 weeks, my apologies. And then the rest of 4.5 weeks out of the 6 weeks plan that you see, the 4.5 weeks were spent on closing all the gaps that were identified. Some of them we could have closed, which we did, and some of the other gaps could not have been closed in such a short notice. It required much more deliberation. So we had a plan, and that's where we stopped, right? So after 6 weeks, we went for the external certification journey. One of the registered certification bodies did the external audit, stage 1, stage 2, in 2 different weeks. Thankfully, the organization got successfully certified. So that's one of the I would rather say a smaller achievement. The much more achievements were business wise. I'll talk about that later. After the external certification got over, we did a handover. So they set up a central quality team internally, whom we did a handover to, and then we closed the project. The overall handover activities took a total of 4 weeks of time. So if you see from start to the end, we took about a total of 14 weeks time, a little more than a year, to complete the journey. I'm sure many of you already understand that if we would have taken not an iterative journey, but more of an waterfall method, time consumed could have been much lesser. Almost half of it was better than that. However, we decided not to do that because the focus was more on major business benefits rather than only the certification, right? So that's what we did in this engagement. Moving on to the next slide. Here, related to the engagement, there were multiple challenges that some of them we assumed and some of them happened, and we had, of course, solutions to them as a consultant. Here I have highlighted 2 of the major ones. There are multiple other ones. Anybody interested can connect with me later on. Right now, just to focus on these 2. So the first, and I think this is the this is the biggest issue in any engagement of this kind, and everybody agrees, it's lack of management commitment. When we say management, we mean top management. So what happens is, during this journey, as I told you at the beginning, there is a tendency of reduction in management commitment. Of course, there is a reason. The reason is that a business in today's world cannot be predicted for a year or more than that. So it's very dynamic, and considering the dynamic nature of these kind of business, the priorities keep on changing. And when the priorities change, it's very difficult to keep your top management's concentration on to a journey which may not give them tangible immediate results. It might require more time to sustain. So how do you do that? And there is another risk that we had assumed, and that happened actually. There was a structural change of the organization halfway through the engagement. So what happened was there was this chief delivery officer who was the primary point of contact for us, the sponsor rather. Her role got changed. She moved on, and then the history went on with her, and there were new set of people who came in, and it was of course a challenge under normal circumstance. Thankfully, we assumed these, so we had an arrangement ready. To tackle the management focus issue, as I said, we created an iterative journey, giving them quick wins and regular wins, which kept them excited. They could showcase something or the other on a regular basis, which was good. And then the second plan was the project roles and responsibilities were very well described and defined. So when the people changed, the roles didn't change, of course. So we kept on going. And the new person who came in her role was reappraised and given the responsibility. So that's how we handle. The second Another major issue was organizational change concerns. So when such kind of a change in a 4,000 plus people environment happens, we all understand it's very risky. Risky in the sense that people are unsure. I mean, people get uncomfortable with any change. And if you can't make them realize that the benefits of it to them, it's a no-brainer that the support might not be present. So that's the same thing happened here. This was an initiative taken over by the top management. It was their agenda. And naturally, the involvement from mid or junior level staff were minimal while deciding on the engagement. What happened was, however, they were the main people who had to participate in the ongoing activities of this journey. So naturally, they were not very keen, as you understand. And that created an initial state of confusion. There was a second issue in terms of change that was from the support teams. As I said, support teams are HR, finance, etc. They had unbelievably low understanding of this kind of a journey, considering the fact that they don't come from this background. So they have hardly heard about ISO 20,000 and service management system and so on. So it was a completely new learning cycle for them. You had to bring them on your side, otherwise this end-to-end benefit engagement would never have been possible. So how did we do it? Good news was that we had experience of handling such environment in the past, and we typically follow a structured org change management approach. You must have heard pretty famous ones these days. The method we follow is a 5-phased approach. We first, before the engagement even starts, we create an awareness campaign spread across the organization, a very light, happy, fun awareness which makes people understand what's gonna happen and how this is going to be beneficial for them and so on. And then after this awareness, they become curious. To fuel the curiosity more, we offer them understanding. The understanding is the second phase, multiple sessions, discussions, and so on. I'm not getting into the details. And then the next phase is bringing their support and their buy-in. Needless to tell you, all of we understand, not 100% of the organization buys it in, even at the end. So there are always the non-believers who will remain, so you can't help. But the majority of success needs to be achieved, or support needs to be achieved here. Then of course bringing in commitment and action from their end. And by the end of the engagement, when you end it and you are moving out, the ideal state for you to see is that they have started advocating in favor of this concept, the journey, and they have started taking ownership in their own areas. This is a very standard 5-phase structure, and thankfully we were good with this. We did this implementation and brought more confidence. But the details of this is the story of another day, another discussion. Today we'll only focus primarily on the benefits that came out. Good. So coming to the benefits, the results, we have created a separate section just to give you more details. Right. Before I get into the benefits slides, I have just 2 slides. Let me just set the context better. See, when you must have heard about this, you go to any client or any organization, they always ask you, okay, by doing this engagement, what is the return on investment, or what is the benefit I'm going to achieve? We confuse things. When we use the word benefit, it could be a tangible or a non-tangible benefit. It could be a number benefit or a risk benefit. At times, by doing something, you reduce risk, which cannot be converted into a dollar value, but that's okay. And at times, you generate dollar value benefits. Also, very important is there are 2 types of benefits you can look at. I mean, at the minimal level. At a very shallow level, if I talk, it's 2 types, right? Effectiveness benefits or efficiency benefits. Effectiveness means if you do something, it will give you better achievement of your targets. And efficiency means if you do something, whatever resources you are using for doing it can be reduced. Like, for example, the time you are using to do something, handling a ticket, can be reduced by 10%. Now, let me tell you, based on what kind of benefit you are looking at, you need to choose your tools or your frameworks. Like for example, if you're looking at effectiveness benefits, you should use ISOs, you should use ITILs, you should use COBITs of the world. But if you're looking at efficiency benefit, the reduction of wastage, enhancement of performance, or financial dollar value and winning, etc., you should look at Six Sigma, Lean. They are meant for that. Even if you look at the definition of ISO 20000, it says it's a integrated process approach to enhance the effectiveness of your service management system. Remember, not efficiency. Now, needless to tell you, even if you enhance your effectiveness, it will have a positive impact on your efficiency. It improves. But let me tell you, that's not the primary effect. That's called halo effect. When you do something good, there are some, out of the focus area benefits that you also reap, but you should not misunderstand that by thinking that that was your focus. It was not, right? So now, naturally, we learn by doing ISO 20K or doing service management system journey, benefits that you can bring in are effectiveness benefits. And now, with that understanding, I'll go to the next slide. So here, these are some of the effectiveness benefits that we achieved. We brought in better alignment between delivery and support teams, which was very crucial. We identified dependencies, we set up OLAs, we ensured that both the parties agree, we then ensured that they do, all of us understand, right? There is always an SLA reporting, SLA review, everything happens, but nobody really does all of that for OLAs on a regular basis, especially for such a big organization. We ensured all that culture starts, and then it started delivering benefits. So that's what we did. Culture of service ownership was better defined. So we brought in, through that clause 4.2, as I said, we brought in more ownership. So at the end of the engagement, none of the service delivery managers had the notion again saying that this is not my job. I mean, every activity was taken as my activity, which is very exciting. Third thing was support teams. The support teams got great clarity. I mean, think about it. You are the HR professional, the human resource professional in an IT service company. Isn't it beneficial for you when you understand their business, when you understand how your work will impact their work, and that's how you start appreciating, you get appreciated even for what you have done, and you have more sense on why you are being appreciated or not for an act of yours. So that came in. Their contribution went higher, their excitement went higher, and naturally the attrition in that group went down. So these are certain things happen. Customer satisfaction went high. I'll talk about that later. And of course, there are some great benefits like proactive planning, reporting, and review. That started with customers. See, these kind of IT service companies, they are great with doing excellent technical work, but they're not very good with showcasing it with the customer. They're not very good with regular communication channels with the customer. And hence, the customers, for the lack of communication and many other factors, the customers feel it's a perception that they are not getting value. And as we all know, biggest chunk of value depends on it's in your head, it's in the perception that you have. So there is a negative perception that creeps. Now through this engagement, they came up with a great plan, a solid business relationship management approach, and ultimately the proactive activities came into limelight. Last point is, of course, reduction of multiple risks. So there are major operational and many other risks that were lurking. They were handled by a separate group called GRC, Governance, Risk and Compliance. They had no regular handshake with the service delivery groups, which was a risk. So service delivery group used to consider this GRC group as a policing division. They used to think that these guys come and police on us. There is hardly any reason for doing so much. But after this engagement, both the parties started appreciating each other. There were handshakes arranged. And now, as for last we know, that this risk assessment piece is well ingrained in their entire customer acquisition and onboarding and then maintenance journey, which is great. These, as I told you, are some of the benefits which cannot be, which are not defined in numbers. Now for numbers, coming to the next slide, two great numbers we saw. First number is improved CSAT results. As we all know, customer satisfaction results, forget good customer satisfaction report. The worst scenario is when people don't even respond to your CSAT request. And we all know in IT service world, it's pretty dwindling, pretty low in terms of response rate. Growth of that by approximately 6% over a period of 6 months is a whooping success. If this can be retained, that's a great news. And let me tell you, in their own submission, a few customers had mentioned that they now feel like responding to these requests for the simple reason that they feel that they are being cared. Because they get regular newsletters, they get regular phone calls, they get regular communication, they get regular plans, follow-ups and so on, which were very irregular earlier. So naturally they started feeling being cared for, and hence when you feel that I'm being cared for, you feel like giving further feedback and guidance so that the service provider improves. And that started. That's excellent. Second major improvement was that the CSAT positive result also went high by 9%. We all know how great that is. So it's a considerable growth. And I believe, and according to the organization submission, that this has major things to draw from the engagement. Going to the second major point, renewal of a high risk account. Now we all know each client account for these kind of IT service deals can be really big. We all know the dollar values. And let me tell you, one of the biggest deals, and these deals are signed for 3 or 5 years, sorry. So there was this 5-year deal client which was coming to an end, and the client's feeling, the perception was of a pretty negative quality, which had to be improved. This was one of the journey after which they started practicing really well. They started collaborating with the client much better, came up with a set of improvement ideas, our client. They said, these are the things we need to improve upon, and their customer got impressed. And I think at the end, the decision they said a nice thing. They said, here I have written it. They said, we feel hopeful about the future of our relation, and hence we decide to renew the contract, which is a great win for this organization. They had hardly any chances of getting it improved. So see, these are some of the number as well as non-numbered improvements that have come in because of an ISO 20000 journey. It's great, and I think in summary, I think ISO 20K has major business benefit opportunities if it is implemented the right way. You need to understand their culture, and accordingly you need to tackle it well. Let me tell you, it's all about people. If you manage the people well, if you have the right approach of improvement, iterative or waterfall, whatever it is, if you do it right and manage it well, and if your objectives are clear, let me tell you, ISO 20K, as editor said at the beginning, it's a magic potion. Let me tell you, if not a magic potion, I'm sure it's a silver bullet. So thank you for that. Last point is, when you do an implementation, keep a few points in mind. Don't make this journey all about papers. Don't create new paper tigers. Don't create great looking diagrams and huge fat documents which are great on paper but cannot be really practiced on a regular basis. Look at your organization's maturity. Do something for today. Please stop thinking about global benchmark. Global benchmark will eventually come. This is why ISO 20K has this excellent approach of giving you the certificate even if you are not 200% there. It says, okay, you are practicing it and I know you will improve. So I will appreciate. So look at the culture of ISO 20000, learn from it, create something for today, something practical, rather than creating a paper tiger. Second point is process or system. You need to ultimately set up a service management system. Do that, but under that you might have to focus on a few processes here and there. For example, in our example, we focused on service level management and business relationship management, two of that, and it yielded great benefits. So my suggestion is do an end-to-end system approach, but identify a few focus areas where you push more. And last point, needless to tell you, stop doing a tick in the box journey. It is not beneficial for anybody. It's just a lot of wastage of resources, valuable resources, which can be used in a value driven journey. So focus on value, not the tick. And that's how you will do an excellent ISO 20000 implementation with great benefits. So thank you all for spending so much time listening to this presentation. I would love to do more such sessions in future. Whenever you require, feel free to reach out to me. And I will now stop my presentation and hand it over to Editor. Editor, over to you.
Mr. Basu, thank you for this outstanding presentation. It is an honor to have you as a speaker. So before we continue with the question and answer session, I would like to inform all the attendees that PECB provides training and certification services for ISO 20000, Introduction, Foundation, Lead Implementer, and Lead Auditor. This training is designed to provide you with the required knowledge on how to effectively implement and manage quality of information technology services. A PECB certificate will demonstrate your dedication in implementing and managing these processes and frameworks, and most importantly, you will be recognized worldwide. For more information, please visit our website www.pecb.com/training. We will now proceed with a question. The first question is, in engagement approach, how is the PDCA or PDSA model? Is it true that PDSA cycle is more applicable in ISO 20000 instead of PDCA model? S stands for study and C stands for check.
So just to respond, let me tell you, I will focus this presentation when it comes to the PDCA. I mean, the approach we took here is PDCA, Plan, Do, Check, Act. To be honest, I'm exploring whether we have done any engagement, where I have been engaged in a PDSA engagement. To be honest, I have not. So if you ask me whether that is a better, that has more merit, I may give you a theoretical answer, but I don't have a practical experience to, to respond to that. So no, I wouldn't be able to respond to that question in the way you are asking. However, if you have a question on this particular engagement or anything to do with the benefits aspects, I would be very happy to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Basu. Because of the time limitation, we will now go only with one more question, and the remaining one will be answered by Mr. Basu through email individually. So
Sure.
The other question is, tips on convincing management who are conquered with benefits that are tangible.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, of course. Tips on convincing management who are conquered with benefits that are tangible.
Steps are? Sorry, you asked steps are?
Tips on convincing management who are...
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's a very painful question. Let me tell you, and it depends on how you convince your management. Most of the cases, when you create a case study, or when you create a business case to convince your management on any benefits, you need to first need to set the context. Globally, when people say benefits, they primarily talk about a very numbered, very tangible, clearer efficiency benefit. People, when they generally look at a benefit like return on investment, or maybe they look at a benefit like, let's say, concept like reduction of wastage and so on and so forth. What we do not understand is that we need to select the right tool set.
ISO 20000 has been overburdened. Not only ISO 20, any ISOs for that matter, has been overburdened by wrong expectations. Let me tell you, ISOs do not give you benefits as a focus benefit from efficiency per se. It does that from effectiveness per se. So my tip number one, don't focus on efficiency benefits. Go to the management with effectiveness benefits that it may yield, like enhancement of CSAT results, renewal of risky accounts, contracts, and so on. You may also, if it is as an internal scenario, you may also like to look at benefits like reduction of risks. Risk reduction, so there are two things top management likes. Either you are talking about reduction of wastage or enhancement of ROI, that side, which is not really ISO side. The second aspect could be you are talking about reduction of risk. And let me tell you, that is something that ISO 20 or any other ISO for that matter can do wonderfully. Focus on risk mitigation and you will be able to convince them better. For more details, contact me. I would be very happy to do a pro bono guidance for you if you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Basu, for these answers. And once again, I would like to thank you for this excellent presentation. And I want to thank all the attendees as well who have joined us today. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. In the upcoming days, we will send you the recording link, which will be uploaded on our official YouTube channel and in our website, pecb.com. On behalf of PECB and Mr. Basu, thank you for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your day.